Today, I want to talk all about what makes successful authors and what better topic and what better guest to speak with other than Adam Carroll. Adam is author, speaker, and mentor, and he has multiple books out there. He's internationally recognized as a financial literacy expert. And actually, Adam, that's how you and I met when I was with the Governor's Office Committee Financial Literacy Network. We had this big event for the state of Iowa on financial literacy and providing the education. And Adam Carroll was first on the list to be the keynote speaker for that event. Hundreds of people showed up for that event. It was magnificent. And Adam, you hit it out of the ballpark. It was amazing.
Well, thank
So
you.
not only that, you are a two-time TED Talk speaker with over 4 million views. And I just saw that you're over 4 million views even on one of your TED Talks. And your mission really is to help people live a bigger life, not a bigger lifestyle. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, so where it all began, Jackie, was I graduated from college debt statistic. I had $30,000 in student loans, and I had 8 grand in credit card debt. And I was living like a rich college kid. And then I quickly realized you have to be a broke professional after that because you have to pay all that back. um, and it occurred to me, I met a woman my senior year in college who said, "Get rid of your debt, or I'm going to get rid of you." And she's now my wife, and we've been married for 22 years. So she's the one who deserves all the credit. But when we started living life differently, it made me wonder why doesn't everyone know this? Why aren't we learning this in school? Why aren't we teaching this in college and high school? And so I started just crafting a message, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was writing notes to myself and journal entries that became part of my book, my first book. And when I wrote that book, I thought, okay, I'm going to go deliver this to as many people as I can. And so my very first book, which coincidentally I have here, called Winning the Money Game, was a completely self-published deal that we turned into a program and started delivering to college students across the country. And the
Fantastic.
message ultimately was, hey, build a bigger life, not a bigger lifestyle while you're in college and beyond.
Absolutely. And what a fantastic message that is. Now, this is great. And I want the listeners and people watching out there to understand he's talking about his first book being published and the strategies that he's going through. This is all about making successful authors and how we're moving forward with that. Taking that idea, starting from ground zero. Everybody starts at ground zero, taking an idea, getting those notes down, getting that message out, and then spreading the word in any way that you can. Now, Adam, tell me a little bit about when you were writing that first book, what were some of the pain points that you struggled with as a writer, just going through that the first time?
Well, I had a co-author on the very first book, and I think part of that was a little bit of imposter syndrome at play
Right.
of me going, who am I to write it? I should get somebody else who also has a story. So there was a challenge writing when you're writing a book with two voices. It's really hard
Yeah.
to combine the two.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, this was prior to Google Docs being a thing. So we were transferring Word documents back and forth,
Right.
and naming nomenclature was not totally set in place. It was like, well, are we version 1 or version 11, or where are we at in the process? So there was a lot of hiccups along the way. In addition, I was learning how to do self-publishing on my own. I didn't have a program like yours. I didn't really have any resources around me of people who'd written books before. So I was relying 100% on what was being said on the internet and what was being told to me by, people who were ostensibly trying to sell me their publishing services.
Right.
So it was definitely a learning lesson. And I
Mm-hmm.
go back and I look at this book and I go, this was our freshman effort. Like, we really struggled to get through it, but we made it. And
Mm-hmm.
this book, coincidentally, has sold 40,000 copies over the last 15 years.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Tell me how the strategies that you did to make that a 40,000 book sale. I know because of your speaking, that plays a big role in that. Maybe
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. When we wrote the book, our intention, and candidly, we were borrowing a business model from a company that we had both worked for, both my co-author and I. And the business model was basically write a book, create a program around the book and sell it to high schools and colleges.
Mhm.
And in the midst of doing that, one of the things that we realized was students, both high school and college students, were asking lots of money questions. And so we wanted to create a product that answered those questions and then have a program that we could sell that would go in and hit on many of the ideas in the book, but then say, you really need the book, check out the book, get the book at the end of the program. And so we sold mass quantities. Like we were selling 100 unit volumes of books to colleges on the regular. And you can bump up your sales numbers quite quickly doing that. So for
Mhm.
new authors, what I often tell them is there a market out there that would be willing to hire you to come talk about how the book was written, why the book was written, the topic of the book in general? But then also they typically will have a book budget of some kind. And some people will call it a curriculum budget, or there's an extra marketing budget. So if you can squeeze an extra little juice out of the speaking gig, if you will, or in some cases, just say, if you buy 100 books, I'd be glad to come and present to your group. That is another
Mhm.
way to get more books out there. And we just found that over time, people started using our book for a variety of things like curriculum in classes and giveaways to put butts in seats and things like that.
Yeah.
So we would begin teeing up ideas of how to get more books out there. And lo and behold, it worked. We had more and more people, buying books all the time.
And once that domino effect starts, it just keeps rolling, and you're out there more, and it gets easier and easier to send that message out. And when you have other people that go, yes, I've read that book, I love it, I want it, let me use that in my
Yep.
classroom, let me use it here and in our family. Let's
Yep.
talk about financial literacy and how we can live a better life within our family even. So you
Indeed.
can use it for business and personal and everything in between, which
Yep.
is always a great thing.
Yep.
um, what are some of the, I mean, we talked a little bit of kind of about the strategies that have made you successful since then. Now you've got 30 days to $1,000. You've got Winning the Money Game was your first one, the Mastery of Money, and then your big Build a Bigger Life manifesto.
Yeah.
Um, and I want everyone to take a look at these books because they all have phenomenal messages in it. And this is a success story. This author, speaker, mentor, Adam, has been a good friend, and he listens to what you have to say, what your goals are, and help you through that through his own business and his own mentoring. So those books I want you to check out and see what he has to offer. I know there were some people out there that have these struggles in this exact situation, most of the society, especially with gas prices today,
Mm-hmm.
that we're dealing with. How do you make sure that you're living a bigger lifestyle? And not a bigger lifestyle, bigger
Bigger
life,
life.
not a bigger
Yep.
lifestyle. But that is the stem, that is the backbone, that is the start of how you get your first book out, and then you do it again and do it again. You can actually you can have a domino effect of success, and it gets easier each time, and you learn so much going
Yep.
through this process. So tell me a little bit, Adam, about kind of those aha moments that you have, and maybe just some best advice for the people out there that really are truly, they've had this book idea in their mind for not months, not weeks. They've literally had it out there for years and
Yeah.
years, if not their whole life. What do you have to tell them, or what best advice do you have for them?
Well, the first thing I would say, and I'm sure you've covered this in a lot of your program already, Jackie, but you've got to make this a habit. You've got to make the book creation process habitual.
Yes.
And for me, I knew exactly when I was in the zone in writing. And I'll tell you, the very first book, the Winning the Money Game book, was a slog, and it took a long time. And we were 6 or 7 months in, and it was going back and forth, and we both had full-time jobs. And then the next several books were significantly easier. And I think the reason they were easier is I knew how to switch on my writer brain, and I knew what it took. And it was, essentially from 5 to 7 a.m. at a Starbucks near my home,
Mhm.
with the same drink and the same rainfall in my ears, because it puts me in an alpha wave brain state to actually be creative. But as soon as I hit that chair and I had the coffee and I had rainfall, it was like, boom, it's time to go. And I would write. And I knew that I could get somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 words out in those writing sessions. So that was my goal. If it was good or it was bad, it was. And it was the 2,000 to 3,000 words that I was shooting for, because I knew I could clean it up in editing. So part of the goal was just getting habitual about writing. That's number one. A second big aha that occurred to me after I'd gotten the second book and then the third book out was the imposter syndrome voice in your head goes away completely, because you may be thinking, oh, who'd want to read what I have to write? And the reality is there are book readers out there who just want to read self-published authors. They just want to read personal biographies. They just want to read nonfiction that's written by, a stay-at-home mom or someone who has kids with a certain condition or whatever it may be. There are people out there who want to read your work. And if your work is trapped inside you, then you're literally depriving those people of what they could be reading. So the aha for me is that I have something to say, and that because I've had something to say for a long time is proof positive that there are people out there who want to hear it. And so I had this epiphany 2 years ago, maybe, was like, it doesn't matter how I use my voice. I just have to use my voice. So whether that's on podcast or it's writing or it's speaking, if it is, important enough for me to feel like I need to go say it or speak it or write it, I'm going to do that. And so you begin to quiet the sometimes deafening voice in your head of like, who do you think you are? Because in reality, that's just doubt, seeds of doubt that have been planted by other people probably down the road. And someone wants to read what you have to write. So just get about putting that book together. I always said that it's finished is better than perfect, because your first book, go back to my first book. It's crap. It's not great. It was my freshman effort, but my sophomore effort, my junior effort, my senior effort get better and better and better. And I know that by the time I write these books and build my list and sell to the list, by the time I get to my fourth or fifth book, man, I'm going to have a significant list and they're all going to want what I have to say.
Absolutely. You build that platform as you go up. You have hit on several items that we've actually talked about in the last 5 days. And I'm excited about that because that just validates further for the people out there. But you're talking about just getting it out on paper, because you cannot revise an empty sheet of paper. You have to get it from your head to paper or in the computer or somewhere. Yep. And establishing a habit falls into I had 7 strategies for the mindset shift for that writer's mindset challenge, and establishing that habit, getting organized and getting through there. The way you had said, I love it, because you get up and you do this 5 to 7 a.m., putting rainfall on your earphones. You're finding your environment, you're establishing your habit, and your mind immediately clicks to that creative side. Yep. And okay, my mind's telling me, I've been doing this, I've been getting through this, it's time to write, and you automatically get in there. Now, some people, and I've talked to Danny Beyer and some of the other authors out there, sometimes you get more done and sometimes you get less done, but you're still establishing that habit, and your mind shift gets into that place where you can be productive and move forward. These people are, and much like I was, you have an idea, but you sit on it and you don't think and you don't get it out. You just keep it locked in your mind. And that's the way to get it out is finding that place of inspiration, keeping that inspiration around you, whether it's, mentors like yourself, your people that I always looked up to were the Jane Patterson, the Nicholas Sparks. I mean, even Jane Austen, they went from 0 to where they're at today.
Yeah.
I mean, that is where everyone can start and move forward. It's been so fun to see. And people writing their first book, you were talking about the freshman effort. I love that, because it's a freshman effort. You're learning everything. And it's the hardest hurdle to go over is writing your first book. After that, these aha moments, and people that share their aha moments, they don't have them next book. They can get through that and much quicker. And that's why I developed this program through Dream to Author, is to, now that I've done 3 books and done the award winning, and I'm talking to fantastic people like you were able to share this information. And so they don't have to go through those big, huge obstacles that we had to go through.
Yes.
And let me ask you, when did you write? What year was it when you published your first book?
My very first book was 2004.
2004, right.
Yep. Yep.
So,
and I've done 4 more since then. So,
and in that time, writing your first book, how many resources were out there compared to how has that changed for
oh
you?
gosh,
I mean, isn't it crazy to see what's out there?
everything that I did was on selfpublishing.com, which was literally a publishing house, a printer in New
Mm-hmm.
York City. And I remember I was working with 2 or 3 people on that team to figure out, well, what does the book jacket need to be? And what's the file format and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
CreateSpace wasn't around.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly Fiverr or Upwork or any of these sites where you can hire editors weren't available.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I hired my sister, I think, who's a first grade teacher and an amazing editor in her own right. But I hired her to do my first edit, first pass through in editing. So, you do whatever you can with whatever you have to make it work.
Yes.
And the reality is that we want a perfect body of work
Mm-hmm.
for our very first published thing. And I go back to that done is better than perfect because I learned so much in getting that first one out that
Mm-hmm.
impacted every single book thereafter, making them all better and better.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to touch on really quick, and you asked about what were the epiphanies. One of the things about writing a book, we think that is the end, that the end is like, oh, I have this work and now it's out there. And I want to make sure that your students understand that the book itself is very important. There's no question about that. But be thinking about, what is it beyond the book? Is it building a mailing list? Is it creating the second and third and fourth book in a series? Do you want to speak on the back of the book? Do you want to promote it via podcast? So whatever you're deciding to do, one of the things I want you to keep in mind is buying the domain of the book or buying your personal name as a domain and making sure that you have the ability to capture people's names on that website. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you go, hey, I loved the book writing process, I want to write another one. Well, you may have sold 1,000 or 5,000 or 50,000 books, and you might get 25,000 names out of 50,000 book readers. And those people will want to read your next book and the next book and the next book. So when you said success begets success in one way, shape, or form, for me, it was, I knew that I was gathering email addresses so that I could promote the next book that I have coming out that I knew would sell a quantity of books on the release, on the launch. And then the release of the third book, the launch became bigger. And the fourth book, the launch became even bigger. So be thinking about, this is step 1, but what does step 5 or 10 look like for you?
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that this isn't the end, this is the beginning of what could be a really valuable business for you in authorship.
It's an excellent point, Adam. And actually, when we talk about marketing your book and moving forward with it, the book project is overwhelming, especially for first-time writers, but that's why I built this program too, because I have 12 different marketing strategies, and based on those decisions, what are those next 5 steps? What do you need to look out for? And my client in New Zealand is right at that stage right now. So we're talking through, how is she going to get the right publisher for her book, especially in New Zealand? She does want to release in America as well. And how do we make that happen? How do we make that work and get her the email list, get her social media platform, a presence out there, starting from ground zero, how to build upon that and capture the information you need. It's completely different than in 2004 and then 2012 when I published my first book. How to change that. Even CreateSpace. You had mentioned CreateSpace, which was the Amazon self-publishing company. It's now called Kindle Direct Publishing. I'm glad you brought that up, because even at CreateSpace, I published one of my book, my second book, with them, and they had editing services. They had book cover designers and interior layout. They have none of that now. They have you have to go into KDP and make sure you've got all of those files in the right format and they have to fit the requirements of Kindle Direct Publishing in order to be published through them. So that even has changed over the years, in just recent years, in the last decade. So it's in the last 5 years, I think. So getting through this, that's really why I feel so fortunate to be friends with you, Adam, to have you come on and talk through this, those aha moments on how they can write their first book, the changes, and developing the program that I have to offer these first time writers.
Yeah.
It's got all of that updated information. And you and I have both seen how this industry has changed and how you need to capture. You didn't really need to capture emails as much as other things back then. It was more direct mails. It was more phone calls back in 2004, even 2012. We did more, but it's shifted. It's the evolution of it is amazing. So getting that help and getting that guidance is important. And you are a mentor in your business. Tell me a little bit about that, because I think that's important for writers needing an accountability partner.
Yeah. I'm doing more mentorship on business stuff these days. My financial education business is kind of morphed. I'm doing some software. Like I'm really, overall, I'm a fan of intellectual property. So whether it's book writing or software or whatever it may be, the idea is, how do you do the work once and then get paid, which is why authors write, I think, and why people write screenplays and movies and all those music and everything else, right? So today my mentorship kind of looks like financial coaching and mentoring and guiding people that way, using our software platform as a tool. That can all be found today at theshredmethod.com, which I'm sure we'll end up doing a book on that as well, because it's just a good marketing tool. But yeah, I'm doing work with dozens of small business owners and entrepreneurs who are looking to expand their ability to make wealth in short order. And it's been really, really valuable, because I use my books as a credibility tool. I use it as a teaching tool. And what I always tell them is, hey, these make great gifts, so you should buy them all for your family and friends for birthdays and holidays and things like that. So the beautiful thing about a book is that they do create mailbox money. It's not a month goes by that I'm not getting paid for something that I've done, in some cases years ago, whether that be, again, the software, the books, or I did a documentary on student loan debt that still makes hundreds of dollars a month. So
perfect.
I'm a huge fan of this model.
And do you, mentioned book rights and things like that. You were talking intellectual property and helping out. If there are some out there, actually, if anyone's out there to look into your services, you said theshredmethod.com. What's the best way to get a hold of you? Is just through that website, or?
Yeah, I would say either theshredmethod.com or all of my offerings, if you will, are located at adamcarroll.info. And it's
perfect.
Carroll with 2 R's and 2 L's, adamcarroll.info. So people can simply fill out one of the forms on my site, which, in full disclosure, goes onto a massive email database. And I don't spam, but, from time to time, we'll send out an email promoting either a book launch or a new podcast or, training or education that we're doing around whether it's financial literacy or speaking or business. So if you were so inclined and interested in what I do, by all means, check out adamcarroll.info.